today is all about doing joins. And of course, with a join, what we're doing is we're taking two tables, okay, and in our output, in our select statement, we're actually going to return columns from different tables. So up to this point, we've used things like a foreign key. So if I were to draw up here registration, make this an entity, and section and person. Okay, so obviously it's going to have relationships with each of these. Okay. And, you know, we're referencing it with the CRN and the ID number. Okay. That's the whole point of having foreign keys. It allows us to quickly and easily tell what is referencing what. Okay, does that make sense? So if we didn't have foreign keys, when we're doing a join statement, we wouldn't be able to do any of the joins. Now, a couple different types of joins you need to know. So we're only going to do the basic type of join, which is an inner join. Okay, so you got a Venn diagram here, table 1, table 2. Okay, inner join, only looking at the intersection, what they have in common. So if they don't both have whatever the key is that you're using, it's not going to be reported. Okay, but if they do, then it will. Okay, you have full join. Okay, so in a full join, this one's not much better, is it? Everything, doesn't matter if they both have it or not, everything is returned. Okay? So then you have a left and a right join, and that just depends on your table 1 and table 2. So if you have table 1 over here, table 2. Okay, a left join, you're going to have everything from table 1 as well as the intersection between table 1 and table 2. Okay, then finally, so this is of course left join. Finally, you have your right join. Okay, so obviously your right join is going to have the intersection and everything from table 2. Any questions? Basic Venn diagram math. If you ever sit for the GMAT, definitely make sure you study up on Venn diagrams because it's a very large portion of the GMAT. Okay? You may ask, what's the GMAT? Well, it's basically the business school acceptance for a master's or a PhD program in business. So if you ever decide to sit for one of those, make sure you review everything. But it's the same type deal. Okay? Basic Venn diagrams. Anyone confused so far? Okay, that's certainly good. And again, by default, SQL uses the inner join. All we're going to be doing today is inner joins. Okay, that's really all you need to know for this class in terms of the actual script and code. But I'll caution you and say, I'm liable to ask a test question, say, what type of join is this? Or I may ask a test question, what type of join is this? Does that make sense? So, it's very likely you'll see at least one or two, maybe multiple choice questions that have a Venn diagram. It'll be partially filled in, or maybe all the way filled in, and you answer questions based off what type of join it is. So for example, say I had Venn diagram looks like this. 4 answer choices, inner, full, right, and left. Which one would it be? Right. Okay, how'd you get that? Exactly, so table 2 is on the right, and you're getting everything from it. Now, what if it looked more like this? This eraser's the worst. Then what would the answer be? Inner join, that's exactly right. Okay? So, make sure you know that, but again, for this class, we're going to be sticking to inner joins. Any questions? So, before we actually jump into the code, let's just scroll through this syntax and see what it looks like. So we've done all this up to this point. So a basic join, again, you're just selecting whatever you want to select. So in this case, we're using select star from section. And then after that, we say join whatever table we want to. Say the on condition down here. So let me scroll up. Okay. So you're saying what the on condition is. This is where the foreign keys are vital. Okay. Because you're saying section.courseNum. So the section table.courseNum is equal to the course.courseNum. If we didn't have that foreign key in there, we would not be able to do that join. Okay, that's the basic syntax of them. And this is a three-person join, or three-table join, I should say. And, we're not going to talk about that quite yet. But any questions up to this point? Okay, let's actually pull up mySQL Workbench here. So, again, I'm just going to go down to where we start the joins. Okay. So what we're doing is we're taking just the section table and we're joining the course table. So let's go ahead and see what that would look like if we didn't do the join. So if we select star from section, what do we not have? So we don't have anything about the course. We just have the subject and course number. Okay, I don't think we have the course name. Let's see what we get when we do select star from course. Okay, so when we run this right here, you can see we have stuff like the credit hours and the course name. So we want to see all of our sections, and then we also want to see the information about the course itself. Okay, so how do we do that? What do section and course share? So they share a course num. Okay, and in this example, we're assuming that course num is unique. In practice, it probably wouldn't be unique, but we're assuming it is because the data set's pretty limited here. You could, of course, use multiple conditions for the single on. That gets a little bit messier, though. All right. So like I say, basically, you would just do select whatever variables you wanted, just using the wildcard symbol. So we're going to get how many variables when we do this? Exactly right. Okay, you're going to get everything. We're not excluding any columns. From section table, we're joining up with the course table. Okay, and our criteria that we have to do, just finding some common column between the two of them. So section, we have a course num, and course, we have a course num. So obviously, these both have to be unique. So when we run this, should we see information about the course for each of the different subjects? Is that what we should see? Yeah, that's definitely what we should see. Okay, and of course we do. So we have the course num and course subject. We come over here, we can see how many credits it is, as well as the course name. Okay? Everyone with me so far? So it's all about where the foreign keys are, because that means it's something in common with another table. So based off of this, where are some other foreign keys? Okay, so the other foreign keys, of course, are going to be in registration. So inside the registration table, of course, it's an associative entity. Therefore, you know everything in it's going to be, well, let me rephrase that. Every primary key inside of it's going to be a foreign key. So if we were so inclined, we could join, say, registration with section, and what would we do for that? So we know that section and registration share what column? Boon. CRN. So instead of doing section.courseNum, we could do a select star from, we could do registration, join section on, say, registration join.crn equals section.crn. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, let's take a look and see what that looks like. So start off by just doing select star from registration. Just gotta spell it right, don't I? And let's do the same thing for our course or section table. Okay, so let's just run both of these and see what we're dealing with. So registration, we just have two things. We got the course registration number and we got the ID number. So the ID number is the student ID who's registered for the class, right? Okay. And then the CRN is the section they're registered for. Okay, so when we do section, we can see we have all the information about the section. Okay, so if I want to do a basic join, what I could do is I could do select star from, we could do registration, join section on registration dot crn equals section dot crn. Okay, does everyone understand how I did this? Anyone confused? Okay, so of course when I run it, I can see who's registered for each class. Now, right now, this is kind of ordered by the CRN. Let's say I don't want to order it by the CRN. Okay. Let's say I want to have it sorted by the ID number. How do I do that? So, so what I want to do is I want to have like ID number 1. I want that to be first, all the way up to whatever the max ID number is. How do I do that? Boom. Order by, that's exactly right. So we do order by, and we do ID no. Okay? That didn't work too well, did it? Huh. Do I? Oh, I know what it is. I forgot to specify the table because it's a join. So ID number is in registration. Okay. And now I think this should work. Well, let's not worry about how we order it by, okay? So basically, we've done a 2-table join. But we're not limited to 2-table joins. So the cool thing about joins is we can join as many tables as we have as long as we have common criteria to join them based off of. So far, we've done section and registration, and we've done, what was the first one we did? Was it person? Or what? I think it was section and course, right? Okay, so they have something in common. But realistically, all of your tables should have at least something in common, because on each side of a relationship, so if we have 2 basic entities here, entity A, entity B, okay, if you have any relationship, doesn't matter what the cardinality is, on one side, you got to have a foreign key, because otherwise you can't identify the instances of the relationship, okay? So the foreign keys are going to be vital. So let's say, for instance, we had a many-to-many relationship. Okay, why can we not have a foreign key? So in a column, when we have that column, we have a row. It's going to be an instance of that entity, or the table, right? So we don't have a foreign key to put there. We can't identify that relationship. This is why we can't have many-to-manys. Any questions? So what we do is we just keep specifying the different joins we're going to do. So we start off, select whatever we're selecting from whatever the first table is, table 1, tell what we're joining, give the join criteria. So in this case, it's going to be section course.course.num and course.course.num. Now we're adding in person information. So person on ID number equals section.instructor. So like I said, we have person. We're using person status. Okay, so person status is going to tell us if it's a student, faculty, or staff. Okay, in this context. So we don't have a separate table for instructor. We don't have a separate table for student. We got a person table. It's a more concise way to do things, isn't it? Now, what's the downside with this? So what's the main downside with using the person table instead of a student and an instructor table? Boom. It's not really a downside. You don't really need one because everything else that it's interacting with does have a foreign key on the other side. For example, registration does have a foreign key. So it only has to be on one side of it, Amon. Exactly. So people can be both, right? It's really uncommon for a faculty to take classes because, they already hopefully have the terminal degree in their field. But let's say you're talking staff members and you guys work on campus. Okay? So you're a staff. Okay? So what that means is that you're both a student and an employee. Okay? That's a downside of this. Now, if ID number is the same for each person, does that mean we have to have something else in the primary key? Okay, so if you have one record for you as a student and one record for you as a staff, according to this, it's got one primary key, right? And what's that primary key? It's the ID number. Okay? So if it's the ID number, what does that mean? That means it can't be the primary key, right? So how can we fix this? Savian. So person status isn't going to be unique by itself either, because there's definitely going to be more than one student. Definitely going to be more than one faculty. Definitely going to be more than one staff. Boom. So that would still be, if you're, let's say you're an employee and you're also a student. Okay, I don't know if you're an employee here or not. You would still have two records. And Social Security number is unique to you as an individual, but it's not unique to you as a student. You don't have a separate one to be an employee. How can we fix it? Sue? That would be one possible resolution, but if we wanted to keep it inside of one table, there's another way we could resolve it. Okay, it starts with a C. A composite key, exactly. So what would the composite key be? So it'd be ID number and person status. Now, we're not going to worry about that for this class, but that's how you would resolve that problem. Does that make sense? Boom. So in this, we're not using person status at all. I'm just kind of explaining that because we're using person, person is going to be both the instructor, so the section.instructor is a person ID, okay? Or is an ID number. That's what I meant to say there. All right. But your students are also going to have their ID number for when they register inside the registration table. So it's a little bit confusing. Probably a little bit confusing. But, with databases, don't go too fast. Slow down, think about it a little bit. And, yeah. So like I say, we're just selecting whatever we want, doing the first join. First join doesn't change at all. All we're doing, you guys remember we did nested if statements in here? Same type idea, where we're just doing another join on top of this first join. Okay, so now this should give us information about the instructor of the course. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so we see we have our CRN, got all that, of course, get our course name. So that's coming from the course table. And then we scroll over a little bit more, we have information about who's teaching the courses. Okay, so that's what this join does right here. Does that make sense? Any questions up to this point? Amen. So that's a good question. The reason is that if you do it that way, you're going to have 3 separate tables. So you're going to have a table of all of your section, you're going to have a table of all your courses, and you're going to have a table of all of your people. The downside with that is that, you have people. So you have, let's say, 12 people. I don't remember exactly. I think it's around 12 inside of here. Imagine you had 1,000, and you just wanted to know which courses were taught by which people. So that's kind of what this buys us right here, is having it all done out to where we can see who is the instructor and what the course name. It's all inside of one table. Does that make sense? All right, any other questions? Okay, let's move on. So let's say we want to get crazy. Okay, we've done 2 table joins, done 3 table joins. How about a 4 table join? Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. Like we said, we can do as many tables as we have, as long as there's some common criteria. With this, we could even do a 5 table join, couldn't we? If we were so inclined, because we have the instructor in person, and then we have registration in person. So we could actually use tables multiple times if we wanted to. That might be kind of fun, wouldn't it? All right. Speaking of fun, I got a question for you all. Okay. Why did the ghost visit the bar? Okay, wanted to get some booze. That's right. Okay. So, let's say we want to be crazy like that ghost. Do a 4 table join. Okay. So start off just like we have before. Just going to do select star from registration, getting everything from the registration table. Give me about 60 records here. You see that down here. It tells you how many rows or returns. Just scroll through. We can see all the different courses and who's registered for them. Okay. Does this give us a whole lot of information? Do you remember what your student ID number is? Okay. But you don't remember everyone in the class's student ID number, do you? Okay. I don't even remember my faculty number. It's something. I got it on a card, but I don't have it memorized. So we want to get some usable information. Let's add in the section table. So we're just going to do a join statement, select star from registration, just like we did up here. Now we're adding in the section. Okay, and what we're going to do is just put the condition for whatever's common between them. Obviously, registration has CRN, section has CRN. So let's do registration.crn equals section.crn. This is pretty much a review. So as we can see, for all 60 rows, it's going to give us the section, and it's going to tell us what each of these courses are. Okay, pretty handy so far, right? Okay, but we still don't know what the course name is. Okay, we know what the subject and the course number is. We don't know the course name. So how do we do that? That's right, add another join. So we've done this. This is pretty much a review. So we're just adding in the course join. So let's just run that. Okay, and now we can tell what course it is. What do we not know, though? What are we missing? Boom. So we don't know who the ID numbers are. Okay, so how do we resolve that? Boom. That's exactly right. Okay, And what do we have? So we have registration has ID number and person has ID number. So we're just going to do a join based on that, right? So let's see what that looks like. Scroll down. And like I said, we're just adding on join person on person ID number equals registration.ID number. Okay. And now we can tell who is in each course. And we have all the information we need. All right. So that's your basic join statements. Any questions about them? Now, the good news is on an exam, okay, do you think I'm the type of person who would throw a 4 or 5 table join at you? Unless it were like 1 or 2 questions. I'm not that unreasonable, you know. You'll be answering questions based off of maybe 2 table joins, so you'll be joining 1 table on another. Okay, Boone? I haven't really decided what the format of this exam will be. It's going to be, it's be a lot more writing than like the Excel part. So if I do have you write it, it would be a lot fewer questions, which is a pretty big disadvantage because let's say you're doing just a handful of questions. Well, then if you miss one, you tank your grade. So I don't like that idea. I don't know. I hadn't really decided the format yet. Amon. There will be some multiple choice. Maybe what I would have you do is give the on part instead of doing the entire thing, because that will be about the same amount of writing as most of the Excel functions. I don't know. Haven't really decided yet. But either way, I will probably give you an ERD before the exam. And I might even give you like the table creation statements as well. I'm not really sure yet. That is a good question. I just haven't really, I don't want to say I haven't thought that far ahead. I haven't settled on something yet. Does that make sense? Yeah, Boone? No, it's on the final testing window. So I don't know exactly when that is. It's after December 10th. I think December 10th is the last day of classes, and then we got finals after that. So I don't really know the final exam testing schedule here. Probably look it up and see exactly when it'll be, but it'll just be during that window. So, any other questions? Okay. So you said 7:30 in the morning. Oh, darn. Oh, that's a bummer, isn't it? I didn't make the schedule. Okay. So now what we're going to do is get the class roster. So we know what a class roster is, right? It's like who all's registered for the class for course number 10. Now, if we were to just get the registration, so we, hypothetically, we have a registration table, and we also have person. It's going to tell us who is in the CRM. Okay, another thing we could do if we wanted is we could just get the entirety, so we could say select star from registration where CRN equals 10. We could do that. What's the problem with doing it? In fact, let's see what the problem with doing that is. So we could do select star from registration, and we could just do where CRN equals 10. Now, what's going to be the problem with this? Okay. So this statement right here should just return what's inside the registration table. Okay. Let's say we could apply a where condition to that if we wanted, but we're not really going to have all that we'd be looking for. So if we want to know who's actually registered, we got to have stuff from the person table, right? So we're just doing a basic join person.id number equals registration.id number. Okay. And then the where condition is going to be where CRN equals 10. Okay, so we run this. Okay, we know this is only for the course registration number 10. So we can see all of the people who are registered for this course. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions? So like I say, it's pretty vital that you have the order of select statements memorized. So who remembers what the parts of them are in order? Okay, it starts with what? It starts with select. Second one should be a gimme to. From. Okay. Then we do where and all the other conditions. Okay. So make sure you have that memorized, because if you get to the exam and you get the order wrong, the answer's wrong. Okay. Boom. So that's for the order of select. So for create, it's like a completely different function. So like create is for creating a table, creating a schema, or creating a database. And to use that, of course, you say create, say what type of thing you're creating, and then name it, and then you start creating it. Like drops the same way. It's a completely separate. This is just for select if you wanted to return existing data. Does that make sense? Boom. So all that is part of select. Well, it can be. The only two things you have to have in select are select and from. Okay, everything else is technically optional. Any other questions? Okay. So now let's do some operators. So we've done the operators before. Let's go and apply them to some of these joins. So what we're doing here is we're selecting course name and the count of course name. So we're going to see how many of that particular course there are from course join section. So of course, between course and section, we have the course number that are going to be the same. And we're going to group this by course name. Okay. So what this is going to do, it's going to tell us for each group name how many of the section there are. So let's just run this. Okay. So we can see we have our different course names, and we're returning the count of those course names. Now, let's say we didn't include this group by. What do you think would happen? Okay. Let's just see. So if we just remove this group by, what do you think is going to happen here? So without the group by, it's not grouping it by any particular thing. So instead of giving the count of each of our course names, it's giving the count of all the course names. Does that make sense? So the group by is basically going to say, for each of the unique things, it's going to apply whatever we tell it. Okay. Could we do average here? Sure. Could we do median? I think there's a median operator in SQL. Definitely a max and a min. So it's all about making sure we have group by if we need it. So obviously, with group by, what type of variable should you have? So should you have some sort of a categorical variable that has maybe at least one or more observations? Okay. So for instance, if we put something that had completely unique observations for everything that's numeric, would it work? Yeah, it would work. What's the problem with doing so? Okay. If there's no repeated observations, all you're really doing is you're returning one for everything. Okay, because you're going to have a list of all of your unique observations. Let's say it were sales. Let's say we had like 1,000, 2,200, 35, 60, and so on. Okay? If you're getting a count, what is the count of this going to be if each of these things only occur once? Boom. So it's going to be 1, 1, 1, 1, all the way down to the end of the list. Okay. So group by can be useful if you had multiple of this. So if you had, say, 4 or 5 periods where your sales were 1,000, could be useful. But it's really only useful if you have repeated things. Okay. Now, could you create a categorical variable saying, let's say, sales between 0 and 2,500? Could you do that? Pretty easily. Okay. If you were to then do that, then you would have a variable for like, and you could use that as a grouping variable. It's up to you however you want to do it. Okay. It's pretty flexible. So that's group by. Does that make sense? Everyone understand it? Okay. We're going to skip regular expression. We're not really using regular expression in here. What regular expression is, it allows you to search for parts of text. So if we were so inclined, we could search for part of text. In this case, we're using in. That'd be like English or engineering. We're going to skip that, though, because it's a little bit beyond the scope of this class. Okay? So basically, intersect is something that almost every SQL implementation but mySQL allows you to do. So this is how you would normally do it. You'd have an intersect, and you just apply that condition. It's very similar to a join, but in mySQL, what you would use is and exist. Now, again, that's basically that's beyond the scope of this class as well. But make sure you understand intersect and that you would use and exist if you chose to. I probably wouldn't include that on the test. I would stick to just join. And what type of join am I going to stick to? Inner. Because in mySQL and every other SQL implementation I'm familiar with, inner is the default join. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Any questions about anything today? You guys understand joins pretty well? At least basic inner joins? Like I said, it's all about just finding some condition that they have in common and just setting it equal to each other. So that's all we got today. Hope you all have a great weekend. See you Monday.